So today we'll be talking about designing with gamification. I'm going to give you some tips for creating fun and engaging user experiences. We'll see how long it runs. I've got a few extra slides at the end. If we get to them, we get to them. If we don't, we don't. Like I said, it'll be pretty casual. All right, so a little bit about myself. So my name's Jeff, like I said. I'm the User Experience and Design Director for a small startup called mLevel. We basically do game-based learning. We have basically a front-end client app that you could run mobile apps or on a web player, and then we also have a back-end system, so it's more of a platform really that ties into our apps. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. My clicker works. There we go. So basically we drive long-term engagement and better learning outcomes with enterprise game-based learning. That's basically our shtick. This is the basically the one-pager that we've put together. We're actually looking for a round of funding right now, so we're sort of handing this out as a flyer. You can see basically the problem that we're trying to solve is traditional means of developing employee skills have become obsolete. So basically when you're at a big, large enterprise and they want you to do the HR compliance or the sexual harassment training, and you have to go through those long, boring e-training, e-learning, online things, it's not really much fun. So that's kind of the problem, and a lot of people dump a lot of money into that. From our research, it's been like $130 billion a year annually worldwide that they spend on employee training. So there's a lot of money invested in it, but as you can see, there's not a lot of return for it. Just because it's not very engaging, people aren't learning from it, they don't want to do it. So basically that's where we come in as mLevel, and we've been proven by top companies to solve these issues. We have let's see, so if you look up in the upper right here, we've got 25 paying customers, and 10 of them are actually from the Fortune 100. So we're sort of enterprise based, and we're focused on the top like basically Fortune 500 companies. And we've had great results so far. So from our studies, we've had about 90% average user engagement. We have 95% positive user satisfaction ratings, and then basically it's really quick and easy to set up. So in order to set up what we call a mission, it takes about 7 hours to get somebody up to speed so they can actually set it up in our system, adding content and adding pictures, things like that, and basically automatically creates games for them to use. It's templatized, so you can chat a little bit more later about that if you'd like. So this is what our app looks like currently. We have games, we've got missions, we've got leaderboards, we've got points, we've got feedback you can see. So these are all going sort of beyond gamification just because they are games. But we do use a lot of gamification elements, and I've done a lot of research on game design over the last year or so I'll share some of that with you today. This is our back end, so you can see we've got, you can create these missions, which is in the upper left there. Then the bottom left, you can actually create activities and games. So we have like templatized things, and we allow you to basically customize the shit out of it. And then on the upper right and lower right, we have our content. So basically what you can do is upload a spreadsheet into our system with like specs, and it'll take those things and automatically make questions for you based on a template that you set up. So it's pretty nice and convenient. All right, so I've gamified my presentation a little bit, so bear with me. Your mission, if you choose to accept, is what we're going to do today. We're going to understand gamification, so that's going to be our first task. Then we're going to move on to the next level, which is knowing your audience. Then we're going to think like a game designer. And then we're going to do some planning and sort of get you started on how you should think about approaching gamification in a business context. And then the end goal is to basically apply the gamification stuff that you've learned today into your everyday life or into your business or work context. So along the way, we'll sort of collect these badges, I'll award them to you. So we're going to start out first as a gamification initiate. So first task is to understand gamification. So let's walk through that. Clicker's dead. So what is gamification? Basically how I define it is it's meaningful play and the use of game theory or game mechanics being applied in something that's not a game. So game does not equal play. They're two different things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And basically the goals of gamification: create sticky, viral, and engaging experiences. Basically have fun, make fun out of everyday boring tasks. And then we also want to drive specific user behaviors, and that's really, it's a really good business model right there, or a use case for this. So some examples. So when you were a kid, you had to go shopping with your mom, at least I did, and I hated it. She dragged me everywhere, so my brother and I used to play this game called the hot lava game, right? And when you're on the tiles, you can't touch the cracks in the tile because they're hot lava. And it just made it a little bit easier to go shopping with my mom if we had that game with us. And you know, gamification has been around for a while. I mean, just simple star charts like this use all of the gamification elements. I mean, you get, basically you earn stars, points, badges. It's like a leaderboard, right? You and your siblings or your classmates are trying to outdo each other, and you can kind of see who's in the lead. You can earn things. Another thing that's been around for a while too is loyalty programs. So think of like airlines, hotels, casinos. You know, they've always had these loyalty programs where if you keep spending more, you get free stuff, right? So it's been around for a while. But my favorite one is basically the urinal fly sticker. So I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before. I've never actually used it, but that's a really smart idea though. So basically the goal of this was to make men less messy in the urinal, right? Because they're going to aim for the fly. So again, game does not equal play. So let's define those a little bit. What is play? So play is unstructured. It's flexible, imaginative. It's usually free form. It's driven by your imagination, and the goal is to have fun. So how is a game different then? So game actually is very rigid. It's structured. It's focused on a certain task. It's driven by rules. And the goal is to win. So not necessarily to have fun. It's basically you want to win. Most good games have a really good story around them, and you know, they get players involved with completing tasks, getting rewarded, progressing through levels, and really, you know, obviously having fun as well. But games are specific in that you're trying to solve just one problem or a specific set of problems. And it also has predictable resolution at the end, where play may not. So you may just play forever and it has no meaning. So congratulations, you've been awarded the rank of Gamification Trainee, so we'll start talking about gamification now. So let's talk about knowing your audience. Basically, we're going to begin by gathering all the intelligence about your target audience. Has anybody heard of Bartle's player types before? So there's 4 types. This is sort of defining all the different types of people's personalities, basically. So we have the killers. They're all about competition and winning. And they're engaged by leaderboards and rankings, things of that nature. And we have the achievers. So these are people who are very compulsive. They want to try and finish things. They start it, they got to finish it, right? They're engaged by achievements and tasks. Then we have socializers, so people who want to develop a lot of friends and connections. They're very sociable. They want to increase their network. And lastly, we have explorers, people who like to discover things on their own. And they're engaged by basically achieving their own goals, whether it's just going through and doing stuff. Yeah, you had a question? Probably a little bit of both. I think it's more just, you know, your personality in general is based off of what these are. You know, competitive people are naturally going to be killers. Compulsive people are naturally going to be achievers, but there's definitely crossover. You don't have to be pigeonholed into one. Does that make sense or not? You don't know? Well, killers is just a general term. Basically, it's people who are competitive. So you can kind of see here. So we'll talk about how they kind of cross over. So what they call killers and socializers, they're really interested in the players. So killers are interested in basically competing and defeating players, where socializers are interested in collaborating and socializing with other people or sharing information with other people. Then we've got, on the other hand, you know, killers and achievers also share some commonalities. they're interested in acting out, or interacting with other people, taking action, basically. Achievers and explorers, so they're all about the game space. So achievers will try to find all the things they need to achieve, and explorers will try to go and find all the things that nobody finds because they're interested in going on their own path. And then socializers and explorers, they're really about interacting with people and objects within the space. So now we'll talk about guys and girls, different, what do they like in games? So things guys like in games, guys like mastery. We don't care if it has meaning or not, it just has to be challenging. Competition, we love to prove that we're the best. We like to destroy things a lot. We also like navigating through puzzles and doing spatial things. And then we also hate directions, so we like to, men are naturally explorers too, so we like to, most of us anyway, try to do things by trial and error. So women are different. So women are interested more in emotion. So basically exploring human emotion and how that affects them. They're interested in the real world. So they prefer playing games like House when they're kids versus boys who are playing Cowboys and Indians, right? They're also more interested in nurturing. So they're not really interested in competing as much. They're more interested in helping others. Also interested in dialogue, verbal puzzles. So women buy a lot more books and play a lot more crossword puzzles than men do. And then finally, they're the exact opposite of men usually. They like learning by example. They appreciate a good tutorial that will take them through step by step, whereas the men like to find their own way. So another demographic that we can sort of explore is age. So when you're designing your games, let's consider age. So basically preschoolers, they're interested in games that they can play with parental guidance. Kids 7 to 9, sort of the age of reason, and they're starting to make their own decisions, feeling a little bit more independent. When you're 10 to 13, it's the age of obsession. So their neurological growth is tremendous, and they have a lot of passion about things that they didn't have before. Once they get into the teenage years, that's where you start to see the separation of the boys and the girls. Boys, again, being interested more in mastery and competition. The girls being more interested in real-world situations and communication. So as we grow into young adulthood, we've got firmly established taste for what we like in our entertainment and our games. So it's harder to pull people away from what they actually like. And then once we start having families, it's basically harder to play because we don't have a lot of time, especially in this age category, the 36 to 50, because we have smaller children who are taking up a lot of our time, and a lot of us are more casual gamers where we're just gaming in between things or to waste time. And then finally, once the kids are gone, then we have time again for games. And the older people generally like games with a social component, so think of like the Words with Friends where they can chat and do things as well. So that's sort of knowing your audience in a nutshell. We've been promoted to Gamification Analyst at this point, now that your target's been denied. So I'm going to do a little thing here. So the first person that can correctly yell out Bartle's 4 player types, I'll give you a Starbucks gift card. Go ahead. You got it. Come on and get it. Congratulations. Alright, so now we're going to start talking a little bit more about game theory and game designs. Basically, I started off as a graphic designer. I went into like art direction, creative direction. I've done a lot of web not development, but design type things. Then I got into mobile. I started doing user experience. The last year or so, I've been more focused on game design. So I think it's important to kind of take a step back when you're thinking about gamification and really think more like a game designer instead of just a UX person or a developer. So I'm going to take you through some general game theory stuff. So this is our little owl that we have in our app. His name is Agent M, so he's going to be following us along. He's sort of our mentor. So what makes gameplay possible? It's basically these mental abilities. So modeling is one of them. It's basically allowing us to create illusions that feel real. So it's sort of imagination, right? Focus. So we have to have enough focus to be interested and to hold our attention. And really, when you're designing, you want to hold that attention as long as and intensely as you can. So again, imagination. Basically engaging you as a storytelling partner, and giving you a sense of the problems that this character will or won't be able to solve, or the user. And then empathy. So that goes back to user experience. You always want to have empathy for your users or your characters that are in the game. So we'll talk about a little bit about motivation, and there's this sort of hierarchy of needs in a game, or just in general. And you can see we start really at the base here with physical needs, and then we go up to safety and belonging and self-esteem, and then we get it to more into the intrinsic stuff, which is self-actualization. And some examples of these. So food, water, shelter, warmth, those are the basics that we need. Then we sort of climb up the pyramid and we go to security and stability. So like, having enough money to do things, freedom from fear. In the middle tier, we talk about family, we talk about love, sense of community, and then we get closer to the intrinsic stuff, which is achievement and rank and mastery, recognition, getting recognized and having respect. And then at the top of the pyramid is the inner talent and fulfillment, and doing the things that you want to do instead of what others want you to do. And there's also LeBlanc's taxonomy of game pleasures. So these are things that people find pleasurable in games. So these are things that you should try to shoot for when you're actually gamifying things. I'll walk you through a couple of these. So basically sights, sounds, and touch. So the game aesthetics, very much a visual thing. Fantasy, imagining yourself in some place that you can't be. Narrative, so basically a story, having a story around something. Challenges, obviously, so it's one of the core pleasures of gameplay, and solving problems. Then there's the fellowship, so companionship, social aspects. Discovery, so exploring game worlds, discovering some secret feature. Expression, so being able to build and share your own things like avatars or worlds or levels, things like that. Finally, submission, so leaving the real world behind. You've had a busy day and you don't want to deal with anything, so you go and you play a game, right? So next we'll talk about flow theory. And the basics of flow theory is to try and balance challenges and skills. So you see in the upper side there we've got anxiety, and on the bottom we've got boredom. And really, boredom goes along with the skills on the high to low side there. So we also have challenges, high to low. We want to sort of be in that middle. So you want to kind of take them through step by step, and you don't want it to be too boring, but you don't want it to be too challenging. It's a very narrow path. You got to find that flow channel that sort of engages them, and you kind of do it in steps too. You challenge them a little bit, then you ease up a little bit. Then you challenge them a little bit, then you give them another easy one. Sort of keeps them engaged, keeps them moving along and progressing in a manner that makes them feel like they're actually doing well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and stop as we go. So the basics of game design. So you see we have aesthetics, we've got mechanics, we've got story, technology, and they sort of all intertwine. So mechanics are the procedures and the rules, where story is more the sequence of events, and it could allow linear stories or branching stories. Aesthetics are obviously how the game looks and feels. And technology is basically, any of the materials or the interactions that you can make your game in. And the aesthetics and the story and the mechanics, those are sort of more visible, where some of the mechanics and some of the story and technology are less visible. So on the high end of visibility, you have the aesthetics, and on the low end, you have the technology, which is sort of hidden in the background. So we'll kind of dive into the game mechanics here. So we've got 6 of them that I'll talk about. So the first one is the game space. So this defines the various spaces that can exist in a game and how those places are related to one another. So here I have an example of it's one of the Super Mario games. And you can see there's all these different worlds that you can go and explore, and some of the levels are locked, some of them aren't. You can kind of go through, but it sort of engages that explorer. So next we have a group of things that are objects, attributes, and states. So these are, we'll start with objects, and those are things that can be seen or manipulated within the game. So things like characters, tokens. And this example is basically showing Pac-Man as an object, the power pellet, the normal pellets, Inky the ghost. And then we could give each of those attributes. So Pac-Man, what can he do? He can move, he's yellow, he eats objects, he can die. You know, the ghost, he moves, he's blue. He can kill Pac-Man, he can go to his cage. So different things have different, think of these as sort of adjectives, right? Then we have the states. So each attribute's current state can be dynamic or it can be static. So you see in this, this is a really classic flow view of states within Pac-Man. So the ghosts start out in the cage. Then when it's time to leave the cage, they go and chase Pac-Man. When Pac-Man eats one of the power pellets, they have a state of turning blue and fleeing from Pac-Man. If Pac-Man eats them, they get sent to the cage. If he doesn't, and the time starts coming down, they start flashing. And then it's just kind of like this big loop. So next we have operative actions. So these are the base actions that you can take in the game itself. So think of these as verbs. So in Super Mario, you know, you can do things like he can climb up, he can move left, he can move right, he can duck, he can jump, he can throw. Then we have things like that are different. They're resultant actions. And these are more strategic actions that you can use combinations of these actions to do to basically get to a goal, right? So some of those examples would be, you know what, you jump and then you land on a mushroom, and that means that you kill him. Same thing, you know, with a jump. If you do something else, if you hit a brick, it gives you coins. So multiple combinations of similar actions, but you know, different, that can do different. They have different results. So next we'll talk about the rules. So there's 3 types of rules that I'll talk about. The first one is concrete rules. So these are basically what you state. They're very clear. Gives the user an idea of what you're supposed to do. Second are achievable rules. So basically, players must think that they have a chance to achieve the goal, because if they don't think they can do it, they're just going to give up and they're not going to be engaged and they're going to quit. And then lastly is just rewarding. It needs the right level of challenge, but again, using those game pleasures that we talked about, so integrating some of those things to make it rewarding to them without even giving them actual rewards, just makes them feel good or proud of themselves. So let's define some of the skills that you need, both real and virtual, within the game, that we need to engage and interest your audience. So the first is physical. So whether it's virtual or it's virtual or real, strength can be something as simple as doing stuff on your phone, like with a touch screen, or using one of the D-pads or a game console. It's all about dexterity, coordination, hand-eye coordination, that type of thing. And there's mental skills that are needed. So memory, observation, puzzles, solving problems. Those are different types of skills. And then lastly, we have social skills. So being able to read opponents, you know, having the ability to do teamwork and lead, and smack talk and banter, things like that. So basically, just to back us up, you shouldn't do just one of these. You should try and integrate a bunch of these, just so that your audience is always engaged. And we talk about those demographics before. You know, you want to try and hit multiple people, because not everybody's always going to be the same player type. So chance and surprise. Really want to try to consider interactions with other mechanics along with human element to create uncertainty and surprise. But unfortunately, we can't always perfectly predict human behavior, so you have to keep that in mind. People also seek out options that create the most pleasure, but they will avoid the ones that cause the most pain as well. And the human mind may inflate some risks completely out of proportion, so you know, people might just totally not get it, or they'll just be like freaking out about stuff. So just make sure that you know, you keep it in perspective. But the bottom line is everybody likes surprises if they're positive and they add delight, so try to do that. So really what we need is a balance of skill and chance, and then basically injecting levels of risk to make it a little bit more anxious. And if you can do all of those things, you have a great game dynamic. So some of the things that you might not think about as a skill would be, being able to estimate chance and estimating an opponent's skill. Those are both different skill types that people often overlook. And just know that skills have a certain probability of success. You want to have every action have some level of risk, but you have to let the players know that they can either take the risk or they can play it safe and let them make their own choices. So predicting or controlling pure chance, that's an imagined skill. As humans, we try to seek those patterns, but it's really, it's lucky streaks, gambler's fallacy, they don't actually exist. All right, so we've made it through that portion now. Gotten another rank. So now you're a Gamification Intelligence Officer. And now I'm going to have you do another little exercise. So I did a tweet earlier showing my gamification deck on SlideShare. So if you are the 20th person to retweet my Designing with Gamification tweet, I'll give you a Starbucks gift card, and we'll check that out after the presentation. So on to the next level. So planning for gamification. We're going to gather some intelligence and unlock the final keys to decode the gamification cipher. So let's go back to gamification now that we've learned about game theory and how can we apply this to our business needs. We basically apply these mechanics into our business products, our apps, our websites, processes, services. How can we do that? And I'll take you through 3 basic steps of how we can quickly get started. So step 1, again, we talked about defining your users. So know your audience. What are their needs? What's holding them back? What's the primary playing style? Are they playing by themselves? Are they playing competitively in groups? Is it cooperative play? Is it competitive play? Who are they playing with? What are the types of people that they're playing with? And what do they care about? What are the things that they want to see out of it in return? Then you have to think about achievements of goals versus enjoyment of experience. These are things you need to balance or figure out, go one or the other, or have a balance of them. Structure and guidance versus freedom to explore, self-interest or social interest in the actions that you take. And then finally, tying in with that is what's the goal of why are you trying to gamify? Are you trying to drive specific user behaviors? Are you trying to create brand loyalty? Are you trying to re-engineer a process or something to make it more engaging or efficient? And just a side note, you shouldn't try to gamify within highly efficient business processes or procedures that are already doing well. Just doesn't make sense if they're already efficient. You're trying to create a sticky or engaging experience that people will come back to see your site or app. Are you just trying to inject fun into some boring task? Or are you trying to create competition? So those are some things that you have to sort of keep in mind as your goals. And then finally, we can use some of those mechanics that actually work. So these have been proven to work in business contexts. There's 3 of them. The first one is validation, the second one is completion, and the third one is prizes or rewards. So I'll walk through some of those. So validation, it's basically a strong driver of long-term quality engagement. And it allows people to form community and to share and express themselves. So you can see some examples of that being like Twitter's following or liking, upvotes, things like that. So if you can put those in your business context, that gives validation. Secondly, completion. So we all see the LinkedIn example a lot, but they were sort of the ones who started the whole gamifying that with a progress bar. I think this is Groupon on the right side that also does something similar, but not only do they show you progress, they show you how you can maintain your progress and keep going and do things. Like the Groupon one actually crosses some things off when you're done with them. So I think this is where I left off, right? Completion, prizes, and rewards. So like I said, these have been around forever in terms of like mileage from your airlines, things like that. You can see some examples here. Victoria's Secret reward card. If you spend a certain amount, you get a certain reward. Another good example would be sort of the Dropbox, where they're trying to get you to do certain tasks, and they're giving you more, they're rewarding you with more space within Dropbox. Some other things that you consider too in a business context would be rewarding users with upgraded status or exclusive access to things, additional power when it comes to like budget or business decisions. And obviously money, gifts, trips, those types of things are always very rewarding. So some tips for success. Provide a reason to play and a way to feel progression and accomplishment. So make sure your players understand the goal of the game. Why are they playing it? What do they get out of it? And if you can, let them set their own goals or suggest goals to help motivate their own mastery. And finally, use global goals that everyone can help work towards. So basically working as a team or collaborating across a business context can be very powerful. And the third step is to actually analyze the data. And this is a step that a lot of people miss. You want to analyze the performance and the player behavior. Make sure you put some analytic tools in place beforehand to gauge your progress and find the spots that you want to basically analyze. And some of those spaces are basically pinpointing where users either drop out, lose interest, and then also on the opposite side where they're having the most fun. And then you use that data to improve and optimize that experience by either adding or removing features as needed. And then lastly, and most importantly, play test before you go out. So make sure you play test, iterate, change things, and then usually you have like a friendly audience that you can send it out to first to sort of gauge how well it's doing, and then after that you can launch it to the world. Alright, so we finally reached the rank of Gamification Field Agent, and you're ready to go and apply gamification into your own user experiences now. So last chance for free coffee. Can I get 2 volunteers? Anybody want coffee? Nobody wants coffee? So player 1, what's your name? Hunter, nice to meet you. Player 2, Neil, nice to meet you. Alright, so you're each going to have 2 opportunities to answer a question first and earn 10 points for a correct answer. So if the person who answers the question wrong first, the other player can have the opportunity to answer and steal, sort of. You'll get 5 points for that. And at the end, whoever wins, I'll give you a Starbucks gift card. So let's go ahead and start here. So, all right, player 1. Name one thing that men like in games. Competition. I thought he was player 1. I don't know. I think he just gave you a freebie. What do you say? Okay. All right, so we do have mastery, competition, destruction, spatial puzzles, and trial and error. 10 points for you. Player 2, Neil. Name one item from the motivational hierarchy of needs pyramid. Very good. Physical needs, safety, belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization. 10 points for Neil. Player 1, name 3 of the 6 mechanics that we reviewed in detail. Player 2, can you steal it? Drawing a blank. Alright, can you name one of them? Give you 5. No, flow channel was not a mechanic, that was game theory. So we have game space, objects, attributes, states, actions, rules, skills, and chance. Alright, player 2, here's your big chance. You could win this thing right now. You guys are tied, I believe, right? 10 to 10? Name the 3 game mechanics that work best in a business context. Now, we just talked about this, right? And were you paying attention? That's the question, right? Yeah. No, that was incorrect. Player 1? I'll give you it.
Yes.
Prizes and rewards, obviously. All right. Player one, I'll give you 2 cards. How's that? And for participating, I'll give you 1. Yeah, thanks a lot for playing, guys. All right, so that's all I have. I do have some additional slides with examples if you want to hang around. Otherwise, you know, I can take questions, things like that. You guys want to keep going, or it's up to you guys. In our own apps. So in our own apps, we actually have reporting in place. So yeah, basically what we track is who plays missions. So we have a concept of mission in our games. So in a mission, you can have different activities and games. So we track gameplays. We track, you know, do they drop off? Do they complete their gameplays? We track how often they play over a period of time. So not only just like not the total number of gameplays, but like within specifics, like how, you know, per day, per week, that type of thing. Yeah, for people that are using it. What's that? Yeah. How would I approach tracking it? Well, you probably have to have something. Yeah. So, I mean, you'd have to have an idea of what your design would be for the system, I think, before you could actually start tracking things like that. So if you had, basically, so like, for instance, if you took tasks or something and you wanted people to sort of go through and progress or collect things, you know, you basically want to find out how many people are actually going through the whole thing, you know, when are they dropping out. Like I said, those are sort of the key points. You want to know if they're finishing, when they're dropping out, are they, you know, having fun. We interview a lot of our people afterwards too, you know, just to see what, you know, did they have fun? Was the game fun to them? Or was it, you know, boring to them? That type of stuff. So not only just putting reporting in place, but also getting user feedback and we do what we call play testing or usability sessions as well. No, I think those are very important. Sometimes they're more important than the actual reporting itself, just to get started. Sure. What type of games we could create? So we've got a bunch of different ones. So you could think of 2 of them are sort of like bar trivia type thing where, and I'll give you an example. So in our app, so one of our clients is AT&T, and they want to teach their retail floor salespeople about the new iPhone 6 that's coming out or whatever, right? So what they'll do is they'll take a spreadsheet of all the phone specs, line them up with whatever matches in our system in terms of, you know, the import-export. They'll upload the spreadsheet that'll have all the specs, and then they'll write one template for a question. You know, what we have like items, attributes, and values. So the items would be the smartphones. The attributes would be, you know, like screen size or things like that, and the values would be the fact about that. So, you know, the screen size that would be the value. So to answer your question, we basically take all of this knowledge and we push it up and randomly generate questions. So then they throw the questions up, and so you might get a question within a game that says, you know, what is the screen size of iPhone 6, and then it'll give you some detractor options, so things that are wrong, then it'll give you the right answer. So if you get the right answer on the first try, you might get like 10 points. If it takes you 2 tries, you might only get 5 points, something like that. So that's one of our game types based on sort of memory, repetition. Yeah, so basically I can go, sure, I can go back and show you. Let's see, go back up here. Yeah, so this is basically, these are our activities in our games right here within a mission. So within each mission, we've got feedback for you, how you did in each game or activity. You can check leaderboards, so we give them their rank on the leaderboard, and typically in enterprise we rank them within groups. So you might have a business group, so think like HR group, or think geographically maybe like you have a Chicago office or San Francisco office, so you can actually tier people into groups. So basically you scroll through this and you play your activities. So if I played that game, I would go through and I get those questions, sort of like a bar trivia type thing. It has a little bit more of a story behind it and some progression. You have to collect things along the way. And then at the end of the game, we give you, you know, how did you do? We compare your current score with your best score. We also give you your peer average, so all the average of the people that are playing the game, how well you're doing compared to them. And I think that's pretty powerful. Again, we give you ranking, we give you points. Something new that's not in here, we've sort of changed our scoring. So we give you stars within the game for how well you do accuracy in terms of the questions. So we sort of have a new concept called mastery. So we'll give you a % accuracy along with a game score as well. And we'll rank, the leaderboard will be sorted based usually on the mastery first. That'll be the first sort, and then the second sort will be your game points. If we have a tertiary sort, it'll be like how long it took you to do it, possibly, something like that. So that particular game is, yes. There are other games that, all of the games have questions in them, so that particular one the game is about questions. Some of the newer games that we're coming out with is, so we do more skill-based games. So has anybody ever played like Peggle? Play the game Peggle? No. So it's basically a game where you shoot a ball and you got to like get all these different pegs. So basically some of our pegs are questions, and when you shoot the ball at a question peg, it gives you this question screen, and it'll give you a chance to multiply your points if you answer correctly, or give you a free ball to shoot. So that's a different type of game that we're doing right now, and we're sort of experimenting with that as well. And then a third type that we're doing is a scenario-based game. So it's more about like linear stories or branching stories, depending on how you set it up. That one's a little bit different. It's not as gamey right now, so we're trying to actually use some gamification techniques to apply that to make it feel a little bit more gamey. And that goes back to sort of the e-learning thing that I talked about before, where you don't want to sit in front of an e-learning training thing for 30 minutes and click through and watch a video of somebody talking, dialogue back and forth and answer questions. It's not very engaging. So that's sort of our solution to that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we just had a really interesting, US Foods is one of our clients, and I think they just got bought by Cisco. And so we basically did a study we did an A/B sort of test group, right? We did people that have never played our game before, and they were salespeople. And then we did one that basically took the mLevel, which is our app. They played the games and did, activities and games in there. And those people actually sold way more cases of whatever they were selling the food versus the other people. So it was really interesting. It's basically just knowledge gaps, and that was sort of, if I go back a slide here. So this guy here, so 70% of organizations cite capability or knowledge gaps as a top 5 issue. So to them, that's like critical. People aren't understanding certain concepts, especially like a lot of our use cases for sales or business process type things, leadership, management, training, that kind of stuff. I don't have all the specifics on that one, but it was a great use case for saying, yeah, we actually tested it, and I mean, it was literally like 1,000% more. It was just amazing. We couldn't believe it. We were like, holy cow, like this is awesome. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so if I go back, I can click. Who's this guy? Actually, go forward. Yeah, I mean, this is basically what we used. So it was these games, and we also have. So, in addition to the games, we also have this activity that's called a knowledge navigator. So it's essentially a browser with it. So when I mentioned they upload all the information, like the iPhone 6 specs or something like that, if it's AT&T and they're trying to sell all these phones, this allows them to put all of these specs on the phones in here and browse through the information before they play the game, so they can actually understand that information, and if they've never seen it before, they can start learning it before they play. And within our game as well, we also have a few other screens, as you can see here. So at the end of the game, it sort of swipes over and it says, here's what you did good at, here's the things you need to learn, and we give them the ability to put things into a study list, and the study list is sort of in here as well. So basically, yeah, I mean, that was our use case. If you want, I can reach out to you afterwards. I can give you more information. I think we just officially got approval to do a case study, like to actually make it public. So so I can send that to you if you get that, or I'll post it. I'll link to it. Cool. Yeah, what's up? I'll get you next.
One question very similar to Paul's question. I'm really interested in this in relation to journalism and people casually browse information and wanting them to. They have a lot of knowledge gaps,
Right.
where it's not true. So one of the things that I'm interested in is when you look at the statistics that you cited, obviously people are highly engaged in the 90th percentile. But how many times are they playing through before they get to that level? Is this a thing where they're just going to play until they get it? And
Sure.
it doesn't necessarily mean that they're necessarily engaged as much as they kind of have to figure it out.
Yeah.
How do you guys kind of measure that? And is that something that's allowed? And
Yeah.
how do you address that?
Well, it's really different. I mean, it's like you have the 10% that are interested in the competition. They're going to play the shit out of it until they're at the top of the leaderboard, right? They will play 120 times. We've seen it, right? There's always one or two of them that they want to be number one. So they're just going to play the shit out of it, and they'll never stop until they're number one, and then somebody else will bump them off, and they'll keep going back and forth, right? Until you get to that point where it's so fine that they give up. Then on the other hand, you got the people that, they're just not interested in the content. They might not like the game itself, so they're going to drop off. So all the other people in between, it's hard, to sort of manage that. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's basically balancing, leaderboard and competition versus the actual learning itself. What I find is if people are enjoying the games and they're quick, I mean, that's really the key, right? So when you take this e-training stuff, it's like it takes you 20, 40 minutes to do it. It's painful, right? And you don't want to do it. So our approach is taking it a little bit more casually and saying, hey, you got 2 or 3 minutes? Go in here and play this game and learn about stuff. And if you're a sales guy and you want to learn about this stuff because it's going to make you more money, why not play a game for like 3 minutes and see how you do? And it could get addictive, and then as the more they play, the more they will learn. But there is that sort of sweet spot of, they're going to take probably, I would say it's probably 5 to 6 gameplays before they're going to reach their max score. And after that, it's either just going to level off or they're going to quit because they know they're not going to get their high score anymore, and then they're going to start over, right? Yeah. Somebody in the back had a question. Having a hard time hearing you, so I got the risk didn't work. Can you step up maybe a little bit? Uh-huh. Yes. Sure. I agree. Yeah, sure. So I think there was a slide, and let's see if I can find it really quickly. So really down here, I would focus on this stuff here because in the business context, you're right. It just gets too much, right? Like I've seen even in one of our sister companies, they've got some sort of blog wiki type thing, and it's like everybody's always getting a status of something else. Like I'm the best blogger, or I'm the best this, or whatever, and I don't really care about that. So what I would do is, that's sort of the upgraded statuses thing, but talk about giving them, rewarding them with different things like exclusive access to certain things, right, that not everybody else can get. Give them additional power in a business sense, like allow them to make certain business decisions, or give them a little bit more budget if they do something. Those types of rewards versus just the badging and points and things like that, right? Obviously, everybody likes money, so give them money. Does that answer your question, or? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so like we basically give you one badge in our app. Well, actually, there's two. So the first badge would be if you complete all the stars in your mission. So basically, if every activity is gone through and played and you got 3 stars, we'll give you the all-star badge. And then if you've actually mastered, so as an administrator, you can actually set what you want your mastery to be within our system. So mission mastery might be like 90%. So when you achieve 90% of the stars, you would get a badge that says, hey, you've mLeveled or you've mastered this mission, that sort of thing. So we try not to overdo the badging. We try to give more feedback, really, because it is learning. So